Going on YouTube, Cloverbell's here back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a recap and analysis of the Japan Invitational that took place last night, or last morning, however you want to see it. It was the time difference, of course, but basically it was held by Mr. Wolfe Glick himself, former world champion. We all know who he is, and he basically tweeted out on Twitter saying, "I'm very pleased to announce that in 15 hours I will be hosting the Wolfe Glick's Japan Invitational, a tournament where 8 of the best players in Japan compete for glory. The event will be live streamed and features many notable players," right? So this took place over on his YouTube channel. So if you want to watch the entire invitational, feel free to check it out on his channel. The video's already up there. But basically, here were the competitors. Yeah, basically a bunch of former world champions, including the one who just won it, right? Shohei. But pretty much, you had Hirofumi, Shoma, these are all like absolute goats at what they do. And, just the whole tournament in general was really, really fun to watch. All the plays, all the reads, all the calculations that, went into like all these plays, it was just absolutely insane. And, one day I want to play like every single one of them, right? Just the fact that you can play against all of these players that, even are like 10 times better than you, that you just learn so much and you understand how, certain plays get to be made, why things are, built the way they are, and just overall team construction and all the tech choices. It's just really, really fun tournament to watch. And I was glad that, Wolf hosted this, just to give us, the fans, a great experience as to what like high-level VGC is played, especially from like some of these top Japanese players, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of these teams and then just talk about like how they function and how some of the Terra options and tech choices came into play in the tournament. And then from there, also, we can also take a look at some of the rental codes, because, as of like 1 hour ago, some of these rental teams that were used in the Invitational actually were posted. So we'll take a look at in a second. Right, like just for example, over here, again, Shohei's, World Championship winning team. He tweeted it out already. So if you want to, take down this rental, feel free to do so. Again, this is all on Wolf's Twitter here. He even retweeted it, or you can just go directly to, Shohei's Twitter himself. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the first team here. All right, so first up, we're gonna spotlight Hirofumi's team. Hirofumi's always like very popular amongst us. By us, I mean like, Western VGC players. You're over here on the NA side. Basically, we love his teams, we love his play, and he's always like a fan favorite over on this side. But this is the team that he was using. It was basically what looks like on paper a hyper offensive team. You've got Tornadus here with the Urshifu combination along with Chien Pao. We've seen that, of course, throughout Regulation D. And then you have Philodamine and Rillaboom, and then the Hisuian Arcanine choice band, might I add, over something like a Heatran. So this is actually a really, really cool team. It's very aggressive, but at the same time, it's also very, balanced and supportive at the same time, because, on paper, it looks like, oh, he just wants to lead Tornadus, click Tailwind, click, Surging Strikes with Urshifu, or lead maybe like Tornadus Arcanine and just extreme speed and head smash a bunch of things, That's what it may look like, but he was able to like play this team really, really well in a more like positional pivoting kind of way, right? Especially like his defensive pivots, because like he was able to, utilize his Rillaboom fake outs relatively well, which is great into like potential Tailwind mirrors or even like Trick Room mirrors. He's able to also, just alternate his protects on his Pokemon, and then at the same time, bringing in the Hisuian Arcanine to get off like timely intimidates. So this way, stuff like Philodamine and Chien Pao or even Tornadus were able to take physical attacks and live to tell the tale and then get off a big attack on their own, right? But what's really cool about what looks like a standard 6 is some of these tech choices that Hirofumi was running, right? So first of all, we'll start here with the Tornadus. Basically, it is Terra Ghost over here, but you have Taunt and it's a Rain Dance Tornadus here, right? That's very, very standard. And the Rocky Helmet is, of course, very, very good in terms of like being able to survive against the Urshifu, because of that Terra option, and then at the same time deal Rocky Helmet chip damage against some of these physical attacks, like either coming from Chien Pao or Urshifu or like even Rillaboom in general. Right, so the Rocky Helmet is a really, really good tech item there. It's also been seen, quite a bit. Sometimes you might see like a Covert Cloak here, or even like Citrus Berry Recovery, but Rocky Helmet was the item of choice that Hirofumi chose. So really, really smart idea here. And then just overall, this Terra Ghost option, good against Fake Out, of course. Now you also remove your Ice weakness and your Electric weakness and, turn it into neutral damage. And then at the same time, you know, you're just able to remove any kind of fighting attack that might want to go into Tornadus, even though you resist it anyway. But again, the whole idea is just to be able to also just dodge the extreme speed shenanigans and remove some of your weaknesses in general. The Urshifu here, so normally, you know, especially like in the World Championships, the close combat wasn't as favorable of an attack, and it was like kind of almost dropped just for like something like either Swords Dance. But you know, here Hirofumi decided to go back to the more traditional Mystic Water set, you know, just for a little bit more damage, along with the Terra Water option here. And you know, we'll talk about this more in a later part of the video, but another popular move instead of this close combat that was seen in this Japan Invitational was actually Taunt Urshifu, which is actually very, very good in a lot of situations, because, you know, with Taunt, you stop Protect, you stop potential setups, and it was just a really, really nice tech choice here. But we'll talk about that tech when we get to those teams. But then over here, the Flutter Mane Terra Grass, which is something we talked about in some of our other videos previously, right? This lets you get around the Amoongus. It lets you not get slept by Amoongus. And then you get around the Rage Powder protection that it provides, and you're just able to hit their partner for like big damage. But then at the same time, you also have this Calm Mind Flutter Mane over here, just able to set up potentially. And then it's a speed boosting Calm Mind from what I understand, right? And what we saw in the Invitational. So you're able to become relatively fast against the mirror. And then at the same time, you can have like potential end games, because you can just Calm Mind until you're like, you know, +6 or whatever, and then just deal like huge damage with like Dazzling Gleam and Shadow Ball, right? And then the Arcanine, right? So the Arcanine is really good, again, providing Intimidate support for the entire team. Really good against like other Tornadus teams, which is something that Heatran can't really give you, because now you have like Rock Slide and Head Smash pressure, and then at the same time you also get extreme speed here. And when paired with like Chien Pao, this Arcanine is just doing so much damage, and it's so aggressive and it's so strong. And you always have like Flare Blitz against like Rillaboom, for example. And then other steel types that's not named Heatran, you know, it also does like huge damage there. I pretty much just can pick up a Flutter Mane from what I understand too, right? So it's a really, really aggressive physical fire type that you have here. And then Rillaboom is actually relatively standard, but there is Terra Steel here. So that's pretty good against like, you know, an opposing Chien Pao going for Ice Spinner or Icicle Crash. So you have that going for you. And then at the same time, it's really good at resisting the, you know, flying type attacks like a Tornadus Bleak Wind Storm. So Terra Steel Rillaboom is another cool adaptation that we see in this tournament that you can pretty much also add to your own, you know, team if you're like, you know, still like making adjustments to your Regulation D teams. Traditionally, you know, the Rillaboom was either like, you know, Terra Water or Terra Fire to resist like fire type attacks or not get burned. But, you know, Terra Steel is now also a pretty good adaptation. And especially if you, even if you didn't have the Assault Vest, like, you know, without that, you're taking like so much damage against something like a Flutter Mane or even like a Heatran. So, well, no, not the Heatran thing, but you know, this is why also like Terra Steel is also pretty good there. But the story of like the of Hirofumi's run, and this was also on the thumbnail, was this idea of Chien Pao with a Life Orb. And now this is pretty much your hardest hitting Chien Pao that you can think of, because think about it, like when the format first started, one thing that Flutter Manes were doing was, you know, investing in their EV so this way they could survive Ice Spinner and Sucker Punch. Jolly, might I add, right? But then the Chien Pao said, okay, so since these Flutter Manes are going slower and a little bit more bulkier to survive my Jolly type attacks, I'm gonna go Adamant, right? I'm gonna be slower, but because the Flutter Manes are slower already, I'm still outspeeding them, and now I'm gonna get more damage by going Adamant Nature, right? And then the Flutter Manes took it a step further and said, you know what, we're gonna take even more off of our attack, and we're gonna invest more in our bulk, so this way now we can survive Adamant Chien Pao. And then the Chien Paos adjusted to that and said, okay, so since you made an adjustment, I'm gonna make an adjustment, and now I'm going to go for something called Icicle Crash rather than Ice Spinner. I'm going to sacrifice accuracy, but in exchange, I'm going to get even more damage output out of my Chien Pao. And then again, back and forth, the Flutter Manes have gone even more bulkier. And then now, finally, they're saying, okay, look, I can survive Adamant Icicle Crash, and now I can survive Adamant Sucker Punch. What's your answer, right? And Hirofumi says, okay, so now we're going to remove the Focus Sash entirely, and we're just going to be going with Life Orb Chien Pao and deal the most damage possible, and there's going to be no kind of bulk that you're going to be able to put on your Flutter Mane to survive this. And that is such a cool adaptation. And you can see, again, it's like Icicle Crash and Sacred Sword. So You know, this was like a super hard hitting Chien Pao, and it picked up a lot of KOs, you know, throughout his run. So shout outs to Hirofumi for like a super aggressive team that still has options for defensive pivot play. Because you have Fake Out and you have Intimidate support on this kind of team, right? So that was the winning team, right? In second place, you had, I believe it was this one. It was Kiwamu Endo's team, which is another really, really cool team. And it was basically a matchup of like Rain Dance Tornadus versus Sunny Day Tornadus, right? So this is like another kind of sun hyper aggressive team versus like the typical rain stuff. And this one has Heatran, right? But you know, by going with Sunny Day here, you have the option to enable your Flutter Mane, which also has Pixie Plate, which by the way, you can do this because now what Kiwamu was doing, I believe his Flutter Mane was also a speed boosting nature one, but by going with Pixie Plate, now you get the speed boost from photosynthesis and you don't have to give up your damage because you don't have the booster energy, and now you can go Pixie Plate. So now you have the damage and you have the speed, right? Because whereas before, typically if you had something like booster energy, you were forced to go like modest if you really wanted the special attack boost, but then that means you're slower, right? But now by going with Pixie Plate, the idea with this is you can still go Timid Flutter Mane and you don't have to like do less damage because now you can just slap on a Pixie Plate and now, you know, your fairy type attacks are just doing more damage. And by using Tornadus with Sunny Day, now you can also, again, enable it by, you know, just going for enabling that speed with the Sunny Day and just, you know, getting the photosynthesis going. Same thing here with the Heatran, you know, also benefiting from the Sunny Day here, just, you know, going for these hard-hitting heat waves. Citrus Berry Heatran would substitute, you know, great against, you know, potential Trick Room teams and just stalling them out, especially, you know, against other Tailwind mirrors. You know, you're just able to also click substitute and the Heatran becomes very difficult to make. Break, I should say. And this is also why taunt was important, because by taunting the Heatran, it can't protect and it can't go for sub, right? So which we did see, I think, like once or twice, so that was also pretty cool. But then from here, that is also, again, a Terra Steel Tornadus. So just like the Rillaboom going for Terra Steel, you also see Terra Steel here on the Tornadus. Very, very helpful against, you know, electric type resistance, against ice type resistance, you know, removing all these weaknesses, and then at the same time, you know, just you know, living to tell the tale, getting off a key Bleak Wind Storm, and then from there you're just going from there. Chien Pao, again, Terra Grass, you know, just like the Flutter Mane, same idea. You're just able to get around the Amoongus shenanigans and just ignore the Rage Powder, and then go for these hard-hitting Icicle Crashes. And again, that's a theme now, right? Icicle Crash, you know, as opposed to Ice Spinner, because like the idea is if you have Chien Pao and Rillaboom on your team, it's a little bit more optimal to go for Crash rather than Ice Spinner, because you don't want to blow up your own terrain. And then at the same time, of course, like we said, you're going for more damage to ruin some of these defensive calcs that people might be calcing for, you know, with the Chien Pao Ice Spinner stuff, right? Then over here, and again, you see it's also focused as Chien Pao here. So it's Urshifu here. It's another standard Urshifu set. Instead of Mystic Ward, it's a Splash Plate, more or less the same idea. And there's that close combat again. So, you know, it's funny to see that, you know, the more traditional Urshifu set that we saw in the middle of Regulation D was the two finalists, right? Rillaboom here, very standard. Terra Poison here. Again, that's pretty good for like Flutter Mane resistance overall. And then, you know, you just remove your weaknesses to fire and flying altogether. So that's really cool there. And we already discussed Heatran, right? So it's almost, again, another Tornadus hyper-offensive team. But again, you still have like Fake Out Pressure and Substitute that still give you that balanced defensive play that, you know, you still need in order to play against some of these more balanced, slower, or bulkier teams, right? And just overall in general in the tour, a lot of these teams were made with like super bulky EVs, because you could just hear the casters like with like Wolf, Aaron, you know, and the others that were just casting the tour. They're like, oh, right, because things were living at like 3 HP, because these teams that Japan was building, right, they're just super bulky overall. So it makes a lot of sense, right? Then if we go here into Shoma's team, which is also another really cool team because it features Sylveon with choice specs. So Shoma had a pretty good run as well. And this one is a Cresselia team, along with Life Orb Chien, right? So that's like my favorite kind of Heatran, you know, just like be super aggressive at Life Orb and just deal a bunch of damage with Heat Wave and Earth Power, and even like Terra Blast, Terra Grass, which is great into like the Urshifu matchup, of course. You know, just able to not only resist it, but deal damage right back. But this one is a very standard Cresselia set with Lunar Blessing, Helping Hand, Trick Room, Terra Fairy, Safety Goggles, so this way you don't get spoiled by Amoongus. The Landorus here is Choice Banded with Earthquake, so that's like big damage altogether. Like you can combo that with Cresselia. But this is Terra Water Landorus without like Terra Blast, Terra Flying, so that's also pretty interesting. That was another adaptation we saw. To me, like, okay, if you have like Terra Water, like I understand it, right? You want to be able to resist the Urshifu Surging Strikes and lift the tail to tail. So I get that. And then, you know, you have this pivot potential with U-turn to cycle your Intimidates. Cress, Heatran, Landorus, this is something that, you know, and also Amoongus, right? The Chalk Core, right? Except there's no K here. This is something that's been around, you know, for many, many years. So it's pretty cool to see. And then Iron Hands here, again, you know, with Volt Switch, another pivot potential move. Can do well with Trick Room here, you know, because like it's another good, strong physical sweeper. And then at the same time here, you know, you got the Amoongus here with, again, the tech move here was that there's no protect, but it's got Grass Knot, which is actually pretty cool. That's probably also useful against the Urshifu matchup, right? Just to have something for that. And even like Ursaluna to an extent, right? To be able to just have a super effective grass move besides the Heatran Terra Blast option. So that was pretty cool. And then of course Sylveon here, you know, choice specs with Sleep Talk. So, you know, the argument over like something like Flutter Mane is that at least with Sylveon, you have more bulk on your team and you're slower, right? Which, you know, which benefits better, you know, with Cresselia in this sense, because, you know, you are a slower, harder hitting fairy type as opposed to Flutter Mane, which is a more frailer, faster fairy type. So Sylveon makes sense on a team like this, and I kind of understand it. You know, you're just dealing so much damage with like choice specs, Hyper Voice, as well as like Terra Blast, Terra Fire. That's also another thing that, you know, the Sylveon's pretty good for. But I totally get the idea with Sylveon on Trick Room teams like this, just because the fact that, you know, you can definitely outspeed things, and whereas Flutter Mane, maybe it's not so great. But at the same time, you know, you can even like consider like substitute Flutter Mane in that sense. But I feel like, you know, because this is like a Trick Room team, it just makes a lot of sense, right? But again, super cool team from Shoma, and, you know, he had a great run, and I enjoyed seeing the Life Orb Heatran deal a lot of damage into a lot of different things. Then as we move forward here, Tomoyuki. All right, so there's another Cresselia Trick Room idea here, but this one was another unique Heatran set. So this one was actually one that we actually even saw in the, I almost said World Cup, but of course I meant the World Championships. This one is Magma Storm, Heavy Slam, Iron Defense Heatran, right? No Heat Wave, no Earth Power, none of that. So Magma Storm, you know, again, if it hits, it's very, very useful because, you know, you get to trap things, you get to deal damage over time. And then Iron Defense, you know, just allows you to help boost up your defenses. Of course, you get super bulky, and then you just get passive recovery over turn with leftovers. And then Heavy Slam, unlike Flash Cannon, can pick up the KO against a Flutter Mane, right? So there's the idea behind that. And then here's that Taunt Urshifu that we were mentioning at the beginning of the video. So look at this, no fighting move, still Mystic Water, but here's Taunt Urshifu as opposed to like the close combat, you know, being dropped, which is again very debatable, you know, amongst many, you know, because now you just get kind of walled by Gashadon, because like what is Gashadon, like what are you gonna do against Gashadon if it's like Urshifu just versus that, you know, you might even see a rise in usage from the Gashadon because this Urshifu set, you know, with 2 water moves plus 1 filler and protect, is getting a little bit popular at the moment. Like instead of taunt, again, like we mentioned, you get to see Swords Dance. But here's that other Urshifu set. And then over here, Chien Pao, it's back to Focus Sash here, Terra Ghost, Icicle Crash, Sucker Punch, Sacred Sword. Again, very standard there. Here's that Terra Grass, Pixie Plate, Flutter Mane again that we mentioned. So you get to see it on this team, right? So we mentioned that. And this one is Rocky Helmet Cresselia. So, you know, if you want to possibly double in with like Chien Pao Urshifu, Rocky Helmet's just going to do so much damage and give you so much momentum there. You're breaking Sash, you're dealing so much damage. And then Icy Wind for another kind of speed control move besides Trick Room is also pretty cool. No Moonblast here, it's just straight up Psychic. So at least you have a slab Psychic move for something like Iron Hands, something like Amoongus, that want to be taking like Psychic type damage. So you have that going for you. And this is actually a very standard Amoongus here with like Terra Water, you know, 3 moves here and Protect. No changes there, but super cool Heatran set. And again, the Taunt Urshifu was the story here with Tomoyuki's team. Then we go to Yusei's team. This was like the opening game in the stream, and you know, the story was actually the Volcarona. And, you know, I was very impressed with it, and for good reason. You know, when we did our tier list video, we actually put Volcarona as an A tier Pokemon because it's so good and it matches well into so much of the meta that, you know, it can just do so much damage, and at the same time it's hard to break, especially when you supplement it with something like Intimidate and redirection support from Amoongus. So the fact that there's Gyarados and Amoongus here makes a lot of sense in supporting the Volcarona. Then you add Grimmsnarl screens here, which is actually really good here, especially with, like, you know, Parting Shot weakening your opponent, so this way Volcarona gets to survive and keep going for these Quiver Dances, and then repositioning with, like, Cresselia. It's just so good. Now that being said, we've got Baxcalibur here, which is, again, another really, really good niche dragon type that's also very strong into the meta at the moment with, like, Ice Shard shenanigans, great against Tornadus, super good against Landorus, also really good against Rillaboom. And then for that, you know, Baxcalibur with the Assault Vest, especially Terra Poison. Is that Poison or Fairy? I can't quite tell. I believe it's Terra Fairy, I want to say. Yeah. Or, yeah, that's Fairy. Yeah, I recognize Poison with the Amoongus over here. So, you know, another good defensive Terra. But just overall, like, this Volcarona was doing so much work on stream. It was living all kinds of hits, right? There is Bug Buzz here as opposed to the standard, you know, Giga Drain as well as, like, Terra Grass here. But Terra Water is also really good because you still resist the Urshifu shenanigans with the Surging Strikes. You still have Flame Body, and you remember each Surging Strikes has a chance to burn, which is important because that's what lets you live, you know, certain hits as well. But again, Quivered Bug Buzz for a little bit more offense, you know, as opposed to, like, the passive recovery. So overall, I was really pleased with this Volcarona here. So shout outs to Yusei for a really, really strong Volcarona set here. And then, of course, we already know what Grimmsnarl can do with something like, you know, Screens and Parting Shot and Spirit Break, just making the overall team bulky. And then Cresselia again here, you know, with Moonblast, Ally Switch, Lunar Blessing, helping out. No Trick Room on this Cresselia, all right? The support here is coming from the Ally Switch, Lunar Blessing, and Helping Hand here. So very, very interesting there. And of course, Gyarados. We know what Gyarados can do in the format. You know, a flying type Intimidate is always really, really good. Great into something like Ursaluna, yeah, and great against, like, ground pivots. Really can be pretty good against Fluttermane as well because, you know, you have Thunder Wave here. But another team with Taunt, again, really good against something like Amoongus, some of these setup Pokemon. And like we said, it does give you speed control overall. Pretty good against Landorus. And just overall a really, really good Pokemon that worth continuing to be explored within the Regulation D format. It's not just all about Landorus, right? Gyarados is very, very much a good Intimidator depending on the team, right? And then just here in general, like this Amoongus was the story of this team. Life Orb Amoongus, I tweeted this, I'm like, yo, this is actually Neil's Amoongus, right? But his very first, if you guys know Neil VGC, he's one of our good friends. Neil, his very first video on his YouTube channel, if you were to go all the way back, it was all about Life Orb Amoongus, right? And once I saw this, I was like, yo, I need to take a picture of this, tweet this, and, like, tag Neil. Neil, here it is. Life Orb Amoongus on a huge stage in a huge tournament. But this is pretty cool. It's got Hex and Spore, right? So, so Spore and then Life Orb Hex. Oh my god, bro. The Yusei was definitely, like, cooking with this. And then you have Leaf Storm, of course. Life Orb Leaf Storm. I think that picks up. Does that pick up Urshifu? Like, especially if they're not, like, super bulky on Spadef. Like, I wonder. I think it does. So, you know, Life Orb Leaf Storm is actually pretty cool. And I respect the tech a lot. But overall, just a really, really cool and fun team. This is actually my favorite team of the tour. Like, even though it didn't reach as far as it could have, the fact that it, again, it has, like, this core of, like, Volcarona and Gyarados Amoongus is actually really cool. So shout outs to Yusei over here. And if you want this rental, I believe he posted it, and I believe Wolfe Glick also tweeted it. Let me see if I can find that here. If I just go back here. Yeah, he did. All right, so right here, Yusei's rental. So if you want to give it a go, here it is. I'm gonna try it, definitely, right? You know, I gotta showcase this on the channel. So shout outs to Yusei for doing a really good job overall. Let's keep going here. Oh yeah, and of course this is Shohei's team. Shohei already tweeted out his rental, so we already know what this team can do. You know, he won the entire World Championship with this. But overall, Amoongus, you know, 3 moves with Protect. You know, very standard set there with Terra Water, of course, and then Iron Hands Terra Water Iron Hands is also pretty good. Normally you would see something like Terra Grass there, but you know, Terra Water Iron Hands is also pretty good. Again, it does make you weak to Rillaboom, but overall as like a defensive Terra, it's just also very, very solid just in general, right? It gives you not resistance, but it makes Flutter Mane attacks neutral. And then at the same time, the Chien Pao ice damage also gets resisted. So, you know, it's just another good defensive Terra there. The Chien Pao is Terra Ghost, you know, with Focus Sash, of course, Icicle Crash, like we said. It was a theme throughout this entire Invitational, as well as, you know, throughout the World Championships. Terra Grass Flutter Mane again. All right, this one is Choice Specs with Energy Ball. And it was fun. It was funny to see that an opposing Urshifu, I think it was, I don't remember who it was, but it actually survived Choice Specs Flutter Mane Energy Ball in the tour. So, you know, I was like, I don't know, man. That was kind of funny. But, you know, I understand the reasoning behind it. And then at the same time, you know, it's just for like the Terra Water Urshifus, right? If they wanted Terra Water to remove their Flutter Mane weakness, so Flutter Manes were saying, okay, let's just click Energy Ball and then we'll take care of it. And then here's that Taunt Urshifu yet again with the two water moves and Protect. So again, you know, you get to see it more than once. And this was our old lander set. Like when we ran Moltres, our Moltres 6 back in July, we actually were a Protect Landers, but I think we were Clear Amulet as opposed to Safety Goggles, right? So, you know, Stopping Tantrum, Terra Blast, U-Turn. Again, this is also really good. An aggressive lander, so Terra Blast, Terra Flying, like we mentioned. We've seen him do this a bunch throughout his run, and you saw it a little bit in the Invitational. So, again, like, you know, Chien Pao Urshifu does a lot of damage. Chien Pao, even Landers, does a lot of damage, you know, just being next to each other and just doing so much. And then we already know what Iron Hands, Flutter Mane, Amoongus, this three, you know, throughout Regulation C and into Regulation D, we already know what these three Pokemon can do. So, you know, without a doubt, it's just a super cool team. And shout outs to Shohei again for winning the World Championship and just even playing in this, right? He's had a busy weekend. He had to like compete in a World Championship, and now he had to compete last night in another like almost 7-hour Japan Invitational tour. So, you know, Shohei's been all over the place. So, you know, if he ever watches this, I just want to say, get some rest, man. And then overall, like, here's the placement again. You know, Hirofumi coming in first, Kiwamu second place. You know, that was your final. Then Shohei winning out against Shoma for third place. And then the two other teams we couldn't really get a hold of. We showcased 6 teams, but again, you had Kenji, Tomoyuki, Yusei, and Yusuke, you know, rounding out what is otherwise a stacked Japan Invitational. Super, super good team, super good play. I highly encourage you guys to like just go back into Wolfe's channel and just watch the Invitational. You know, whenever you got time, there was just like overall high level play. But, you know, what did we get out of it? Basically, you know, we got to see different Urshifu sets, some Flutter Mane sets in general. We basically, you know, no one's running Ice Spinner on Chien Pao at the moment. Everyone's running like Icicle Crash. Rillaboom was a very, very good Pokemon, and Heatran, when it did come, put in work, but, you know, sometimes it just wasn't the bring in certain games, and just overall, like, some of these Pokemon, you know, with their sets and their Terra options, was super cool to see. But overall, you know, besides the teams, it was just the play, man. The reads, you know, the calculations of like how to be like 2-3 moves ahead, was just absolutely insane from all 8 of these players. So shout outs to them, and you know, it was a pleasure to watch. All right, but anyway, let me know what you think of the Japan Invitational Tour. If you did watch it, you know, was there something that, you know, maybe we left out that maybe we could have touched upon? But you know, thanks again to Wolfe for hosting it. It was a blast to watch. All right, but we'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good one.